That moniker, long lost. For years, its majesty spilled out onto the land, like some endless symmetry, and thus, it replaced the former. Men had sought to tear it from the earth, but sweating and combusting had cursed this great destroyer. Wretched and shadowed relatives embraced the structure and attempted to cradle it. Yet despite some titanic shift in concrete, its authority was never questioned. The progress of man had faltered, and any resurgence would have been witnessed, stained in towering glass, akin to a prior and sinister edifice. Given the crumbling platform around it, modern pillars collapsing and turning to dust, this vertex of the earth stood towering like Samson, alone for centuries. Drones, felling the mass around it, had been united by an understanding. Differences aside, it was the anti-liturgy. Initially, it was the tallest structures that were first to be deconstructed. The engineering was relearnt in reverse, as they were carefully dismantled to become dominated by the smaller structures. The skyline became gradually dormant and confused, as major points of architectural reference that determined the geography of a city were vanishing. It then came the turn of the smallest structures. These disappeared in an almost sporadic fashion, and the city was an orchestra of controlled explosions and collapsing detritus. Gradually this petered out to a near silent hum of erosion, rust and entropy, commanded only by calculated neglect and time. It is impossible to say which was the last significant group of a civilization to vanish. Although many may have migrated out of the city, many more were enveloped by the land they sought to cleanse. Small monuments were occasionally erected in their memory, but these were eventually considered contradictory, and soon the ritual ceased. What is known is that it became an infinite task to catalogue structures and objects determined by their decreasing height and depleting mass. Eventually, the catalogues themselves became immense structures, and these too had to be destroyed. Soon, nature rapidly took over, and great areas of land became wasteland, then meadows, and finally immense forests. Only one monument now stands as the only visible evidence of a once great civilization. It still rises, tall amongst the landscape, towering above all geography, even in its half-unmade state. This elevated column of now defunct materials is considered a blight upon the land. This too, like the other man-made objects that once occupied a similar space, must be returned to feed the land. Its form was in direct contrast with the multiple histories that originally crowded the city at its base. Like a modern mast atop a very large ship, stretching to escape the antiquities it stored in its hull. Over time, however, it too became an ancient monument, an ephemeral ruin. It is now proliferated with wildlife, and the shadowing echoes of an unknown workforce that gnawed its remaining skeleton, tirelessly working to tame this aching limb back down towards the earth. There is a story, a myth, which has travelled through many generations that told of a great animal, a fox in fact, that over one night scaled its many floors. It was discovered in the morning on the very top level, standing motionless and rooted. During the structure's tortured legacy, the fox remained at the apex of the building, staring out at the sun, and at night, the moon. It was only when no other structure in the landscape existed that the fox disappeared. It was said that the fox was an immortal overseer of the deconstruction of the city and its civilization therein, only to leave when the last measurable trace of the city had gone. It is strange to think that through some divine impulsion, some unseen transcendent force, that humanity decided as one to carry out such actions, to create an almost uncreated land. The strangest of all is that they all work together, like a well-choreographed biological entity with no objectors, no rebellions, no civil war or no conflict to speak of at all. And so, it was a gradual apocalypse. An apocalypse by choice. A poetic and laboured apocalypse. An anti-apocalypse. This was a catastrophe against technology and knowledge nurtured by the people. It was not in an effort to end life, just to enrich it. to become enlightened and eventually return deep inside the earth and start from the beginning again. All relentless might, never waning superiority, loyalties were uncertain. Bursting apart, entangled limbs of brilliant light became measures of time and rule. A glass chorus, shapes reigned. Letters and numbers fled the wreckage, and the wonder stood. A ripple and a wave. The roots of that great tree spread wide, preaching to the earth. Kneeling before it, with the summit cracking, a hidden smile lay eyes and eyes. Time elapsed, and there was acceptance. The structure had become more than the sum of its parts. It was to be revered. And like nothing had been certain before, there was certainty in its form.